smash that like button, leave a comment below. Yeah, sounds good. Hey guys, what's up? Today's video is going to be about how I edit my photos. Now, first thing I want to mention is that from this point forward on this YouTube channel, I'm going to hope and try to get videos out every single week. Something new. I've actually got my my little whiteboard back here with some ideas, and I'm always open to other ideas. So if you have anything that you would like me to make a video on, or that you're interested in seeing, feel free to leave a comment below, or send me a DM on Instagram or Twitter, any of that kind of stuff. Today's video though, I'm going to be going through how I edit my photos. I've picked two images. One I'm going to do in color and one I'm going to do in black and white. Now, when it comes to editing, generally I keep it on Lightroom. Very rarely do I ever go into Photoshop, and if I do, it's only so I can clean up the area, remove some blemishes, maybe remove garbage if there's something. It's not very often that I do anything else in Photoshop. So I'll take you into Lightroom, we'll edit these images, one color, one black and white, and then we'll get started. So let's go over into the computer and get these edits started. Now, this first image here is a shot of Tessa in front of some evergreen trees. It's really nice. You get the nice bokeh from all the snow coming down. It was a pretty snowy day. It wasn't too bad. It was nice and cold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started. Usually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into lens corrections, enable profile corrections, and what that's going to do is going to get rid of any distortion as well as any vignetting in the photo. After that, generally, my next step is going to be tone curves. Now, I usually bring these blacks up a decent amount, bring the shadows down, and then I bring the whites down, just because I use white borders on Instagram and my website has a whole white background. So having a strong white, especially if you get something like this where the clouds are kind of white, or it's a very cloudy day so the sky's kind of white, it kind of clashes with the background of the photos on Instagram as well as my website. So I generally bring this down a bit just to give it a bit of a grayer tint. I'll then also bring up the highlights and then kind of play around with the midtones and see how I like it. Now what I generally do is I will hold Alt when making any adjustments, as to make them a little more micro adjustments rather than adjusting them very strongly. I'm gonna bring that down maybe over here. Generally the way that I edit my photos, like I said, is fairly subtle, nothing too drastic. And what I'll do is I'll edit one image in a set, and then I'll copy that edit over to every other image in the set. And afterwards, kind of go through each one that I like and individually tweak them so that they all have the same kind of style going. So for the curves, I'd say that's pretty good right there. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, that'll work out. Next I'm going to go into basic. I'm going to bring down the highlights. I'm going to bring up the shadows. Bring up the whites. And bring down the blacks. Just give it a bit more contrast. I'm also going to bring up the vibrance. Bring down the saturation. Cool. Now, white balance. White balance is something that I seem to struggle with fairly decently. Sometimes I'll edit an entire set, love it, and then afterwards realize, you know what, I made all these images a little too yellow. So what I generally do is I'll go straight to auto, see how it looks. 99% of the time it doesn't work. Not a fan of this, so I'll send it back to as shot, and that'll kind of give me an idea of what I'm looking at. So with this, it's a little too blue, so I'm going to bump up maybe about there. It's not too bad. Just a fairly subtle adjustment to give it some warmth. And that's really about it for that. Maybe it is a bit... Yeah, no. I like it like that. Perfect. Next is going to be the HSL tab. First I'm going to take the greens, kind of play with those a bit. Now as you can see, if I adjust these greens, it's adjusting her hair, it's adjusting her jacket. So there's not too much that I can do. I don't want to mess around with it too much. So I'm going to leave the greens the way they are. I am going to bring down the saturation on them a little bit. And I'm going to bring down the luminance on them a little bit. Just to make them a little bit darker. Perfect. Maybe I'm also going to bring up the luminance on orange just a touch. Kind of just her skin tone just a little bit. And I'm gonna bring down yellow a little bit, just because all of the grass is around her. It's a yellow, and it's not exactly the nicest looking. So I'm gonna bring down the saturation on that a little bit to try and make it a little less punchy. And then sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'll mess around with split toning. Kind of add a little bit of blue into the highlights. And, try a little bit of yellow in the shadows. I like that. I think the blue is just a little bit too strong. See if that fixed it. Oop, closed it. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. And then I'll usually come in afterwards, go to effects, and just pump a little bit of grain in there. Not too much, so I don't want it to be too strong. But yeah, that about does the job there. I can then also kind of reset all these settings and maybe bring down the exposure just a little bit so that it's not so contrasty from the top to the bottom of the image. And yeah, that's about it for image number 1. It's a fairly simple edit, not a whole lot done. I mean, that's the before, that's the after. Usually I'll double tap L. I use a white background on Lightroom so I can see how it'll look. This kind of gives me an idea based off of my website if it's going to have any weird blending or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I like how it turned out. It's a fairly simple edit. That's image number 1. We'll hop over to image number 2, which I'm going to do in black and white. Now, like I said, my black and white, I generally have a little bit more of a punchy film look. It's very popular right now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the image into black and white. It's pretty simple. Then I'm going to mess around with the highlights. I'm going to bring the highlights up a bit. I'm going to bring the shadows down. Bring the whites up a touch. And bring the blacks. I might actually bring the blacks up just a bit. Shadows a bit more. And of course, looking at before and after, it's going to keep it in color. So fairly simple, just going to do that, bring in a little bit of contrast as well. Then I'm going to come to the tone curve, bring up the blacks a bit, bring down the shadows, bring up the highlights, and bring down these whites. And then it comes to the next part, which is going to be the black and white version of the HSL sliders. Really what I'm generally going to do with these is based on image. I'm just going to slide it back and forth until I find something that I like. So I'm going to only bring that down a little bit, because if I bring down too far, you can see that her lips really start to look weird. And bring it up too high, it gets too light. I'm going to bring up the yellows a touch and the greens. Leave those. Bring up the blues. Bringing up the blues kind of brings in some information in the sky. Really, that's about it there. It's fairly simple. I then go into... So, generally when it comes to black and white, I'm not going to do any lens corrections. I like the distortion, and I often like the vignetting. I'll sometimes even add more vignetting. So I generally don't bother with that. As you can see, adding it really didn't do much anyways, except lighten up the colors, or the corners, which I'm not a huge fan of. So, after that, I go into my effects panel, and I bring in a ungodly amount of grain. Now, some people like it, some people don't. It all comes down to personal preference. In my black and white images, I like to have a lot of grain, which you can see in my, this is probably a little bit too much even, but if you look at my website, you can see I have quite a bit of grain in any of my black and white images. And I mainly just do that because it kind of gives it a filmy, old-time look, and I'm really a big fan of that. So yeah, really that's about it. It's a fairly simple process. I don't do a whole lot. So there's image number 1, color. Not a whole lot done to it. Kind of just keep it simple. And then go over to image number 2. And that's the other one in black and white. Not too much of a difference. Like I said, I like to keep everything subtle. And yeah. So that's about it for this video. I just wanted to get something out fairly quick that I could get out to you guys. Like I said, from this point forward, hopefully weekly, I'm going to have new videos up. I have some ideas. Hopefully my next one might be going over like having a block in your creativity, but we'll see. I have a few different ideas running through. The only time that it might mess around is next April, or this April, sorry, next month. I'm heading out to BC for 2 weeks. In that time, I'm going to be recording, I'm going to attempt a vlog. I'm going to be recording some vlog, as well as some cinematic content. I'm going to throw together a little recap video of my trip afterwards. So really, that's about it. Yeah, thanks for checking out the video. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to see me edit some more stuff, or if you're interested in having me edit some of your photos, leave a comment below. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for checking out the video. Subscribe, comment below, leave a like. Perfect. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Peace.